Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned his country that a long and difficult war lay ahead. The Israeli Defense Forces, after launching the largest military mobilization of troops in its history, has now entered into the second phase of its war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The IDF is supplementing heavy aerial bombardment of the besieged territory with what's been described as a ground incursion, the details of which have been kept closely guarded. The airstrikes began in response to the October 7 attack by Palestinian militant organization Hamas, designated a terrorist group by the US and EU, on southern Israel that killed more than 1,300 people and saw more than 240 taken hostage. And the IDF's long-held strategy of retaliation is in full force, with more than 8,500 people killed in Gaza in just over 3 weeks, according to Hamas-run health ministry authorities there. In the first 6 days of the war alone, Israel's military said it dropped 6,000 bombs on Gaza, a blockaded enclave roughly the size of the city of Philadelphia. Now, ground troops are moving into the territory. Our soldiers have been operating in Gaza City for the past few days, surrounding it from several directions, deepening the operation, the IDF's Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi said Thursday. Our forces are in very significant areas of Gaza City. A ground offensive is necessary to achieve Israel's goal of eliminating Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip, the IDF says. A prolonged invasion, however, should it become that, will be bloody and costly not only for those living in Gaza but for the Israeli military as well, military veterans and analysts say. Urban counter-insurgency, as the U.S. military learned in Iraq, brings deadly challenges to troops that do not apply in an aerial campaign. In urban combat, you take higher casualties. That's just a historical fact. Jim Webb, a former U.S. Marine infantryman who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, told CNBC. Iraq showed just how much of an advantage the defender, particularly an asymmetrical one, has in urban combat. There, lightly armed insurgents were able to use the urban landscape to first slow and then tie down the greatest maneuver force in world history for years. In the case of Gaza, that defender is Hamas, and it will have almost every advantage in ground fighting, Webb said. Cities naturally canalize the attacker into predictable avenues of approach. It also means these fights happen at close range, which makes the use of supporting arms, such as tanks, artillery, or air power, extremely difficult, even if there are no civilians in the area, Webb said. Gaza is full of civilians, and Hamas will be able to blend in, he added. I do not envy the task the IDF may be asked to undertake. Israeli soldiers will be dealing with unfamiliar streets and alleyways, mountains of demolished buildings, and Hamas' extensive tunnel network, which the IDF euphemistically calls the Gaza Metro.